Hello, welcome to another devlog. These past 2 weeks I've been busy because of exam season, which is why my progress was very limited. As I don't have a lot to talk about in the progress department, I'll mainly focus on the design of the game in this video. But first I'll mention the things I was able to do in my limited free time. I've built the entire main menu, hooked up the saving system, and finished planning all of the content that I'll add for the August demo. Sum total, I have 356 pieces of content to add. The examples of that content are stuff like traits, buildings, or policies. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, I'll tell you everything about player customization and the choices you can make before starting the game that will decide how your playthrough will turn out. First, you have to create the person you'll be playing. That means give them a name, decide their traits and their ideology. These will modify your stats and decide your strengths and weaknesses. The type of person you are will have major effect on gameplay, but it will serve more to specialize you in some categories rather than completely change your playstyle. The next and most important section of creating a new game is the faction tab. Here you also have traits and ideologies to choose, but beyond that, you need to decide on the structure of your faction. Before I get into the details, I still need to say a few more things about ideology. They'll decide what kind of policy your faction will be aiming for, and what sort of structure it can even have. Each combination of ideas will be represented by a unique ideology. Total, there are 27 options to choose from. I've tried to get a pretty wide spectrum, so if you have an ideology in mind, it's probably there, or it has a close cousin being represented. Just off the top of my head, you have stuff like fascism, liberalism, anarchy, ludism, socialism, and monarchism. Depending on what ideology you pick, it will limit your options for the structure of your faction. The most obvious example will be that when you're a socialist, your faction will not be able to be a corporation. Okay, so now I'll go through all of the options you will have for your faction. The first thing will be your goal, meaning that what in the end is your faction actually striving for? The first and most simple goal is domination. Your win condition will be to simply conquer the entire solar system. The next goal is a utopia. It requires you to create a perfect society in which pretty much anyone will want to live in. This goal is the most complex one, as it requires policy making, research, and a lot of wealth. This goal will be the easiest to achieve by xenophilic or tribal ideologies, as it will be extremely difficult to be the place everyone wants to go when you're discriminating against a large chunk of people. And the last goal is ascension. Your win condition there is to get to the endgame technologies and implement them. Okay, now to the methods of organization. First, we have the dictatorship. Unlike democracies or meritocracies, you won't have to worry about political capital or influence. You'll be able to implement any policies you want, declare wars at the drop of a hat, and essentially do anything you want in your station. The rub is, you'll have to deal with heat. The more you use your power, the more your party members will become agitated. Whether they'll try to assassinate you or organize a coup will depend on your relationship with them. Bottom line is, the more heat you have, the harder it will be for you to sleep at night. Okay, next we have good old democracy. Here you'll have to deal with all the mechanics I talked about in the previous video. You'll have to worry about the popularity, both yours and the party. Your political capital and influence will limit the degree to which you can affect your faction. And overall, it will require you to make a lot of friends to be successful. Okay, now for the last type, meritocracy. Here, your popularity and the popularity of your party will matter to some extent, but rather than deciding elections by itself, it will just be another factor. Here, instead of having to make a lot of friends, you'll have to worry about appearing very competent. That will be accomplished by doing stuff like winning wars, accomplishing objectives, and meeting targets. Every year, you'll have a performance review that will decide your political power, or if you're even able to keep your position as leader. Okay, now for the last section, the faction type. The first one is the generic political faction. You simply govern over people as you'd expect. Next is the military faction. Here, instead of being party leader, you're the supreme commander. This type of faction will have a lot more flexibility when it comes to military action, as their government and military are one and the same. Lastly, we have the corporate faction. Here, you'll be playing the role of the main director. This type of faction will focus on making the most of your economy. Okay, having gone through all that, here are a few more specifics. Everything you see on the screen will be fully customizable during the playthrough. You'll be able to restructure your faction, your ideals, goals, etc. For the demo in August, I'm only planning on adding the functionality for a democratic political faction. The goals will only matter for their modifiers, as there will be no endgame to speak of. Implementing all of these faction details will take a long time, but it will add a lot of variety for each playthrough. Okay, lastly, in the creation screen, we have the station. Here you'll decide how the start of your playthrough will look like. While the previous two tabs affect your entire playthrough, here you'll just be picking your initial conditions. There's one feature that's missing from the screen, and it's the intro section, but that's still a very long time away. In the future you'll be able to pick how you got into power, whether it was peaceful, through a coup, or stuff like that. But for now, that's all there is to creating a new game. Okay, so that's pretty much it for today. Now that I have the summer break, I'll have a lot more time to work on the project. I have a long way to go to complete the prototype, but my ETA is still the end of August. If you found this video or project interesting, consider subscribing to the channel, as I'll be needing the help of experienced strategy players to check out the game in 2 months. Okay, that's it for today. See you in 2 weeks.